Hello again, lockpicking Paul here. What I've got here is a Guri East German padlock. I think it's East German, or at least Eastern European. Could be Bulgarian actually. This came from Jason34, along with a couple of other fantastic, really interesting locks, which are going to be appearing here over the next few weeks. And so, first of all, a massive thanks for sending me some cool locks. And this one is pretty cool because it doesn't have a regular key. It has this sort of stamped dimple arrangement. And what it is, it's a lever lock. There are 5 levers in this that need to be sort of either moved up or moved down, brought into alignment, and then that will release the catch inside the lock. Now normally you would plug this key in the side, give it a push, and that latch will spring open. Oh, it has done at that time. However, I have knocked something out of alignment in this lock. You tension these by pushing on, I don't know if you can see it in there, there's a part of a carriage mechanism which sort of slides into this cutout, and I think it's like spring mounted, like sprung steel mounted, and you can either tension it through the down side of a shackle hole, pushing that way, which you have to apply quite a lot of tension, and I wasn't able to sort of really do that very easily. Or in some cases you can tension down the side of the keyhole towards the back, but when I try to do that, I've pushed something off its mounting. So the lock does still work, and it will lock and it unlocks, but those levers don't stay in place. They wobble about, and they didn't before. So I think picking it might be very difficult, plus it's not quite right. So I need to put it right. Now, as I was doing a bit of research on this fantastic lock, I couldn't find a video of anyone gutting one. Largely because they're riveted shut. And I'm no stranger to machining off rivets. So I do want to put this right. I do want it working because it's a great padlock. It's really unusual. So what I think I will do is I will machine off those rivets so I can just take this plate off and reassemble the lock so it's working fully properly. And that, you know, when I do that, it'll be a great opportunity to do a gutting video, and then I should be able to put it back together again, and hopefully I can sort of retain at least on one side proper rivets. Maybe I'll come up with some arrangements sort of for tapping the studs if they're thick enough, if I can get a drill bit down. We'll see. If not, I'll put some suitably aged machine screws through it, and I'll just have to live with the fact that it's screwed back together again. But actually, I think it's quite cool to be able to take it apart. So this video is going to be in several bits, and I'll stitch them all together at the end, and hopefully with a pick and a gut, and we'll walk through the lock. So I'll be back in a bit. And Jason, don't worry, I will do right by this lock. See you shortly. Right, so we've just got this off of the mill. Managed to zip the tops off of those rivets. They're all pretty well centered, so I don't know if I'll be able to tap down them or not. We'll have to see. A couple of interesting things. I can see what I've done wrong with when I was trying to pick it. So here, this bit is loose inside. It's like some kind of spring clip, and I think that slots round the back of the lever pack to keep them all together, and that's what would explain why they're all gone sloppy. So that's fairly obvious. A couple of other interesting things to note. The entire carriage, which is this assembly here, which sort of slides back, that's the bolt in the top of the carriage, is tensioned by this piece of rusty spring steel. Very high tech. It's just wedged in there. There's nothing actually locating it. It's just pressure of the carriage against the casing that's keeping it in place. But other than that, once you've got the lid off it, it's actually remarkably simple. What I'll do, I'll get it all sort of fixed, and then I'll sort of take it apart on camera. show the mechanism fully working, because it's fascinating mechanism. Right, that's it for now. More later. Right, so fix the carriage mechanism. It was what I thought it was. That spring clip goes around the back of the 5 levers, top and bottom. Just sort of keeps them bunched together, really. It doesn't do much more than that. But you can see the mouth now with the key slots in. And as when you push the key in, it retracts these levers. They just compress down like that, which allows the whole carriage to move backwards. So incredibly simple. But you can see as I push the key down, the probe down the side of the keyway, I caught the edge of this spring clip and just forced it off the back of the levers. So I can see what I did wrong now. Okay, so I'll see if I can get it back together again. I think I'm probably going to have to use screws. And probably some kind of shroud on them. Because they'll just be a lot more reliable. And it'd be nice to be able to take this apart. Do a proper sort of gutting video of it. Alright, more later. Right, one unbricked, reassembled and working lock. Just prove the point. What I wanted to do is just walk through the picking process of this thing, because it's a tough cookie for all the wrong reasons. The tolerances in this lock are appalling. It can only have one screw to assemble it, because actually these 4 rivets here, which I thought were just rivets, are not. They're actually part of the lock. So this is how it works. This carriage mechanism here, there's a spring at the end of it. When the key goes in, it lifts. So you can zoom in on this. You might just see there's like a copper lever, top and bottom. There are 3 at the bottom, there are 2 at the top. As the key goes in, they compress inwards, like so, and the whole carriage slides backwards. You have to force it because the rivets aren't being supported, like so. Surprisingly simple mechanism, but actually very, very effective. So let's just put that down there, take that out, and we'll just have a quick gut and take a look at the inside of this. Happy to take the time to do it, simply because normally you don't get to see inside one of these. So that's the spring, that's out. Let's unlock it to do that. Right, we'll leave all that in place. So you can see the mechanism here. Let's will this zoom in anymore? Yeah, well, okay. So you've got, use a probe to do this. Those dimples on the key line up with the top part of each lever. They effectively push the lever up. Difficult to do. These things, by the way, getting a pick on these things is really difficult. That's how they lift up and they come past the actual locking bar. Now, this particular lock, the 5th lever on the top, the 3rd one along the top is the 5th lever. You've got to get right back into the back of the lock, and you've got very little leverage to get on this lever with and lift it. I have actually picked it with this pick. It took forever to do it. just finding the lever in the back of a lock and then lifting it. And the spring is really, that spring, piece of sprung steel at the back there, which is basically clamping the levers together, it's quite strong. But I found a better way to pick this lock than using a pick. I've made a hook. What you can do is you can reach in through the front of a lock, and underneath each one of these levers, like so, and you can lift them like that. You've got a nice void to work with, and it works tremendously well on the 5th lever, which you've got quite a lot of access to the bottom of the lever, but very little access to the top of the lever because it's so short. So you really do have to lift it into place, and the hook works exceptionally well for doing that. Otherwise you'll be there all day with a pick trying to push on that tiny nub at the back, getting the thing to rotate upwards. So yeah, I'll just quickly reassemble that and I'll show you the process. So little fiddly to get this thing back together again. Getting it right. There you go. That's that. I could put this thing back together again in my sleep. I've had it apart so many times. Put the spring in. Right, so just show you the passage of the. So the tensioner goes in down the side of the keyway like so, and you have to rotate it upwards so it's facing that way. Otherwise, there's a danger it will catch the spring at the back there, and you absolutely do not want to do that, because that's how I break the lock in the first place. You can see it literally slides along the top of the levers into the back of the carriage and pushes on the carriage. So you're sort of picking it like that. You can see the path of the tensioner. Then you get the hook. Hook goes into the front of the keyway. Underneath, rotate it round underneath the lever and then just pull. You can see the lever being pulled up like that. Do that for each of the 5 levers and the lock opens relatively easily. But like I said, working that out has been quite the journey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble all this, get it focused, and then we'll get it picked. See you shortly. Right, so all reassembled and fully working. So as mentioned earlier, I'm going to pick this in a reasonably unorthodox way. Certainly I don't think it's been done like this on YouTube before. I'm going to slot the tensioner very carefully down the side of that keyway. Let's keep it in the crook of my thumb. And then I'm going to use this hook to lift the levers or pull them down, subject to whatever they need. Now this lock does get quite stiff, so even when you've picked it, you're going to have to give it a wrench, I think, probably to force that carriage back. Just going to work my way through each one of the levers with the hook, pulling up from underneath. Right, so that looks like the bottom 3 levers are done. Top ones are a little bit more tricky. You've got less room above the lever to rotate the hook loop into place. That's one of them. There we go. Open. Now, that looked easy. I promise you it was not. Getting to that point has taken bloody ages. But that is the best mechanism for getting into this lock, to lift and to pull down. So for what was basically a minute and a half's worth of picking time, it's probably taken me about 4 hours to work out how best to do it, and obviously fix this, put it back to working rights again. So chuffed to bits, we've got that done, and all is well, he said optimistically. Right, we have to manually reset this. Here you go. All is good. All that remains to be said is Jason34, thank you so much. This has been a really fascinating challenge, and I've loved doing this lock. It's greatly appreciated. Happy New Year, everybody. Cheers.